Hello, everyone. This is the Christian Hangout, number 37. I'm your host, as usual, Ian. And with us, we have Tommy Jones, and we have LUMEN Saul. Thanks for coming, guys.
Greetings in Christ.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. So we didn't have a particular. Yeah, thanks for coming. Definitely need more people here, and anybody who can be a stalwart is appreciated. But and LUMEN has been in every hangout that has a 3 in the number, so that's he's still got that streak going.
Yeah, it appears to be some sort of weird numerological thing for me.
Well, once we get to 40, you're allowed to take a break. So
yep, that's fine.
At 43, you have to come back for sure, though. When we get into 300s, you're in for a ride.
I can provisionally commit to that.
Yeah, we'll see if we get that far, but that'll be years from now if we ever do. But at this rate, so anyway, we didn't have a particular topic planned for this one, so this is one of those where the floor is open. We're topics, and we'll see where the conversation goes. Excuse me. So one thing that we had been talking about was a thought that we've been having lately about how in the alt-right there's a lot of division over the subject of religion or Christianity in particular, and you see a lot of people who are really hardcore against Christianity. And we actually discussed this a little bit in the last hangout we did, how there are a lot of people who, the more right-wing they get, the more favorable toward Christianity they seem to be becoming. And I think Chris Cantwell is mentioned as an example of that. I think Stefan Molyneux is kind of an example of that. I don't know if there are other factors besides him just seeing the light, or maybe if the circumstances have made him question things. But we as Christians who are part of this sphere, movement, whatever you want to call it, we do have a responsibility to witness to others as best we can and be willing to talk to people about these things. And I guess just wondering if we have any ideas on if there are effective ways to witness to people, or if there are ways, not necessarily recruit people, but just communicate with people and get their minds on the right track.
Well, I'm going to try something new and keep my big mouth shut and let someone else speak first for a change.
Oh, cop out.
I just threw down the gauntlet.
Yeah. Okay, but we were one thing I was thinking about was I mentioned this yesterday. LUMEN and I chatted a bit yesterday, but I noticed we mentioned Christopher Cantwell earlier about how he's currently in prison because of the stuff in Charlottesville. And if you listen to those podcasts with Mike Enoch that he's been doing over the phone, he's mentioned that he has this Amazon wish list of books he wants to read while he's in prison, and he mentions it in just about every one. So I was curious what was on his wish list, and I was surprised that there were some books in there that had Christian themes to them, like How the Catholic Church Built Civilization, and another one I think was called The Heart of Addiction, which had a cross on the cover, so I assume it's a Christian themed book of some sort. And maybe Cantwell does believe that there are some spiritual answers to be found in terms of his own issues, because I know that he's talked about his own struggles with alcohol and whatnot. So I would say he seems like a person who's searching, and he's somebody who could be fertile ground, even if maybe he's kind of still skeptical about a lot of things. So,
well, I'm going to withdraw on my former invitation to shut up, and I'm going to speak.
Oh, now you want to speak.
I know.
Okay, go.
But people that come to the alt-right, to reactionary thought, white nationalism, these are people who have listened to their instincts that something is terribly wrong, And so these are people who, number one, they're willing to acknowledge that they're broken in some way, and in this, in the current schema, the current zeitgeist, and then on top of that, they have to deal with the fact that just acknowledging this puts them at odds with all of their fellows, and it results in loss of social capital. Perhaps you might lose your job, whatever. But so these are people who are. I mean, we're all in crisis in the modern world right now, but until you start taking an honest look at it, you can kind of just get by and just sort of unplugged. But so when you get to that point, you can sort of start to congregate with people online. You can meet people through Twitter, meet people through the TRS forums, meet people wherever, and start interacting with people a little bit. And there are some tentative first steps of meeting people in person. And but the bottom line is there's just a lot of alienation and a lot of anxiety, a lot of struggle, and you need to do something with it. And this is, Christ said, all who thirst, come to me, all who labor, come to me. And so this is, this is the one thing that I think that can bring some meaning, to this struggle, that can bring some meaning to this this tragedy that we find ourselves in. So it's up to us to be patient. Number one, even if people are rude, belligerent, there's the atheists, or the people that are they're white nationalists, but they're not ready to give up on degenerate habits. There are people who are the kike on the stick people. Just we're a mess. Western man is just a big mess right now, and we have to be patient and ready, for any sort of opportunity we have to reach out to these people, because it's the only thing that will bring you peace. St. Augustine said that we're made for God, and I'm paraphrasing here. We will not be at peace until we live for Him and live in Him. So it's going to take some time. We're in the nation stages, the just the beginning of what we're doing, and everything is in disarray. Everything is chaotic, and we know who loves chaos. This is Satan loves to sow discord and tumult, and and again, Christ offers peace. When the sea is throwing the boat around, and Christ invites us to have faith. And so I'm kind of rambling already, but we have to be open at all turns, and we have to see every opportunity as an opportunity to witness, an opportunity to reach out to a brother or a sister, and you're essentially, it's about conversion. It's about finding Christ and being there for someone else to find Christ. So every opportunity, did you visit me when I was in jail? Did you visit me when I was sick, etc.?
I was just thinking about that. I was actually finding that verse in the Bible right now as you mentioned that. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you have something to say, Thomas?
Oh, I was just gonna say I think patience really is key here. I mean, earlier talking about there's like a natural longing people have for for religion. There's this spiritual needs, and I think as it stands right now, dissident right, all right, and all that, it's lacking in that. You know, it's very focused on race, which of course makes sense because the left is constantly, going after people, and they're always bringing up race. But it's people need more than just uh, this kind of secular, um, put political ideology. They need to be fulfilled spiritually, and I think eventually people are going to start coming around because they haven't found it yet. So yeah, patience is key.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't write these people off even if right now they're rejecting it. We have to be there for them when they're ready to find it.
Right. And also, I mean, society right now is very, anti-Christian, right? So a lot of these people, they still have that, all that, I guess conditioning, how, right, we got breaking the conditioning, right? From the media and from whatever they were taught in school, especially if they were going to, a public school. And so a lot of people too probably are coming from very agnostic, if not fully atheistic families. So, a whole lifetime.
Yeah, and we're several generations separated from the mode of living which sustained us for centuries as Europeans, which is that this is a theme we seem to touch on repeatedly here, but in societies where even if you weren't necessarily a very pious soul, maybe you were even an atheist. You always hear in decent literature from the 17 and 1800s about the cranky old village atheist, hanging out at the granary or whatever. But even so, you were living in a society that was suffused through and through with the Christian ethos, and that really that's the lifeblood of our of our people's of our history, of our accomplishments, of our our dedication to each other, our allegiance to each other, our and I don't mean this in an overtly racial way, because for the majority of our history, we were homogenous societies, but and this is what connected us. This is what connected us to our ancestors, and what gave us impetus and it moved us spiritually for our descendants. And so that's gone, and that's just, we're on, we're in uncharted ground, uncharted waters right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that even people like Millennial Woes and Stefan Molyneux, who are not Christians, have both noted recently that, if you take away somebody's religious faith and give them nothing to replace it with, then you're just leaving people miserable. And so it's very obvious that we're kind of set adrift right now.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's so this is why it shouldn't be surprising that even when white people are when some white people are kind of waking up and looking around and realizing what's going on and beginning to understand the urgency and the need to act. They're still they have no real frame of reference when it comes to what we always depended on to keep our societies healthy.
So what can we do to help those people find it? I mean, I think we can all recognize the problem, but like, are there ways we can reach out to people? I mean, one thing I was thinking about was, to mention Christopher Cantwell again. I remember on one of the podcasts at the very end, he was saying, if people just wanted to send me a letter, that would mean a lot to me, because, getting books, I'm sure, is one thing, but getting an actual personal letter from somebody is like a human connection that somebody in prison isn't getting. And, as we mentioned earlier, there's the verse where Jesus is talking about the sheep and the goats. And he, one of the things is, you visited me, you did not visit me in prison. And while it's true Christopher Campbell's not a Christian, like, he's somebody who, he is in prison, and he's somebody we can show compassion to. Like, I was thinking, maybe I should write him a letter. Maybe he just wants to know that people care about him and empathize with him. And
that is a good idea.
My only like thing where I'd be worried about that is if they were somehow going to dox me or something. But
yeah, I thought of that too.
And because I don't know, we're hearing about how corrupt Charlottesville is, but I mean, it doesn't have to be. I don't have to reveal any information about who I am, that I'm Ian, reactionary Ian, or whoever on the internet, that I could just just send them a personal note or something and just let them know, hey, we're pulling for you, we're following you, we hope you do all right, or whatever. Just I mean, I think even just to bring up, I keep mentioning Stefan Molyneux, but I was talking with LUMEN about this the other day. So LUMEN, you've already heard this, but for the sake of everybody else who hasn't heard it, he recently had a video called "Why I Left Religion," and what it was actually an excerpt from the call-in show where he had a caller discussing Christianity with him, and in the middle of the call, he kind of stopped to give a little speech about his own personal history with Christianity and talked about why he eventually rejected it. And a lot of what he said was actually, it had to do with the fact that the people at his church seemed like they didn't really care about him personally, that, they were nice people and it was a nice environment, but he didn't feel like they really cared about him personally, and that they didn't show concern for his well-being, even though, as he puts it, he had a crazy mother and everybody in the church knew about his mother and her issues, but they still didn't. Nobody ever tried to intervene or show concern for his situation. So, and there was also the fact, he said that, he looked at the world wars and how those were done by at least nominally Christian societies, and he felt like that indicated that Christianity was a failure. And also just the fact that he said that a lot of the congregants in the church didn't seem to really enjoy the church, like it was just sort of a ritual for them and they didn't care about it. And he says, he said, I think the caller after the little thing asked him, would you have rejected Christianity if it hadn't been for that? And he says something like, well, I might have, but I imagine it would have been more difficult to do so. So it really did get me thinking about how, as Christians, we should show concern for people. We should reach out to people more, because it really does mean a lot, especially in these isolated times we live in. People really are looking for someone they can make a connection with, and somebody who really cares. And especially in this corner of the internet, a lot of us are people who maybe are more isolated intellectually from the people around us, or we feel like outsiders in the normal world. So making those connections is important, and it is important to show that we really do care about people, not just like church attendance or church growth or money or anything like that, but we really genuinely care about people, and doing things that can demonstrate that would be a positive thing, and it's what we should be doing as Christians.
Well, these are actually, you know, opportunities to you know, not just to be there as a Christian for someone in need, but it's also an opportunity to save your own soul, because you know, just what we're talking about right now, this particular thing we can do for others. You know, we just mentioned the you know, Jesus exhortation, you know, to do this in the gospel, but it's, you know, in you know, again, I always have to you know, mention how vital the rosary is, and how it's such a superlative way to really get to know the faith. You know, not just to get to know it in an intellectual sense, but to get to know it in a you know, as something that's a part of you, something that you're doing. You know, not just something that you understand and you admire, and you're you know, you're happy to be a part of it. It's something that you're that you're doing. And in this case, you know, just you know, today's today's mysteries, which are the joyful mysteries. Put your microphone on mute, Moose. But you know, today's mysteries are the joyful mysteries, and you know, the second one is you pray for charity. You know, Mary visited her cousin Elizabeth, and you know, you're meditating on, you know, how wonderful it is to bring Christ to others. You know, and that's charity. That's true charity. And then the fourth decade is or the fifth rather. Sorry, is the finding of Christ in the temple among the learned men, and that's, you know, you pray again. It's about conversion, but it's also about converting yourself. You know, you're looking to find Jesus everywhere, and that's what you're doing. You know, if you send a letter to Christopher Cantwell, you're sending a letter to Jesus. You know, if you're there for someone in a whatever Twitter direct message, you know, you know, it's as if you're doing it for Christ. So yeah, and these are some of the things we can do, and you know, they benefit us and our salvation, as well as you know, hopefully opening the door for others to seek salvation as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, I think with people too, they may just be disenchanted because of how so many churches are nowadays. I mean, you either go in and you know, at least when it comes for younger people, you might be you and a bunch of, you know, octogenarians or something, right? Or it's just the priest is just saying something which is, you know, it's just your typical far left kind of garbage. So, you know, maybe forming you know, Bible studies. I know, I mean, it was mentioned earlier, Ian, you were talking about ones that are online. You know, you could get people into that, or offline, you know, depending on your relationship with people, I guess. You know, explore the faith together that way, instead of feeling like you have to kind of struggle through a political lecture or what have you.
Yeah. My biggest hope is that people who do come to Christ will not look at it as sort of a political tool, but as something they're sincerely, you know, seeking as the truth, not just something that can unite them for political reasons. I think we actually talked about that briefly in the Bible study last weekend, but yeah, it's another issue. But I do think that people who are seeking out of love, they will come for the right reasons, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, it has to be with people who are who are open. You can't just force people, right? Like they have to want to. They have to want to learn more about it, and yeah.
And one of the things Ian and I were mentioning yesterday is, sometimes you witness just by how you live your life, and you should. You should talk about Christ. You should talk about your faith. But you can also, just by doing your best to live as a Christian, you can, people will notice. People will notice that there's something different about you. They'll notice that, if you're really doing your best to practice your faith, people will notice that, even though things might be crazy and chaotic and sorrowful, dangerous, whatever, that you're somehow maintaining some sort of peace, and that, just that can open the door for people sometimes.
Yeah, I remember. Well, yeah, LUMEN and I were talking yesterday about that. I have actually had people who seem to like observe things about me, and they can tell. Like, I never really, like, I'll confess I don't always talk very openly about my faith, but I do try to live it like the best I can, and sometimes I don't always do that perfectly. Well, I don't think any of us does really, but people do. I do, for based on the way people respond to things I do and say, they seem to pick up on it even without me saying it. So I guess maybe that means I'm doing something right. I hope, but I can only just do the best I can. How you doing, Moose? We haven't really talked to you yet.
I'm doing good. I kind of glad to be able to participate again for once.
Yeah, it's good to have you. I guess you've probably been pretty busy lately with your house, your home, and fixing things up and all that.
Well, yeah, it's a never-ending project. I've got probably years worth of stuff on my list of things that I need to get to eventually, but you do what you can when you can.
Yep, just an ongoing process.
So I'm sitting in the backyard now. We just finished supper. So I came out in the back and I just got a pipe going while I was listening to you guys and watching the chickens. We let them out in the evening we have a big area pinned in for them, but we let them out all over the yard in the evening because they'll all go back to the coop when it gets to be closer to sundown here, probably in the next 15, 20 minutes. And
Are there any predators for the chickens around your area?
Yep, we had a coon that got 2 recently, and neighbors saw a skunk a couple houses down. Those will eat chickens as well. The coon, I got a couple pellets from a pellet gun into him the other night, which coons have thick skin, so it probably just hurt him a little, but I mean, not actually physically hurt him. But hopefully it'll keep him from coming back and trying to get more of my chickens.
You need my dog. She caught a huge raccoon the other morning.
Well, the dog had it treed. That's why I got to have a couple shots at it. But the dog stays inside during the night, and it's obviously been during the night that it
they're nocturnal.
Happened. So I've just been listening for the last couple minutes. I pretty much missed anything, probably the first half hour here.
Well, we've been just talking about how to witness to people and things like that, and just from like a dissident right perspective, we've been talking about ways we can witness to people in this side of things who are maybe a little bit skeptical or who may not be all the way there, but who might be fertile ground for the message we have as Christians. So,
well, I guess I had a question that's related to that I wanted to ask you guys. And I'm just wondering, for those that want to answer whatever, like, and I can answer this too if people want me to, but doing like in the real world to make things better? Like, I know that we all have at least some level of online presence or whatever, but like, what are the things that you guys are doing that you're able to like say, yeah, that's making a difference and is
Well,
helping rebuild?
I can give one example that I'm kind of happy about. There, I'm hopefully this coming Sunday or one shortly thereafter. I'm going to be taking a guy, and we all know him. I mean, he's, you know, in the pantheon of, you know, alt-right voices. You know, he's not like you know, super well known or prolific, but we all know him. I'm hopefully going to be taking him to, and we live kind of close to each other, so I'm going to be taking him to the Latin Mass, because he's expressed interest in it, and that's kind of what I was getting at the beginning of our talk tonight is, you know, a lot of guys and women too, I'm sure, you know, they get to this point, and you know, when I mean, when I finally came back to the church after, you know, about a decade of atheism, I was really happy, you know, to have come back, and but you know, the you know, the bloom came off the rose a little bit as I just noticed as I became, you know, more aware of, you know, the pause in society, and then, you know, you know, then going to, you know, the Novus Ordo Mass, and thankfully, you know, by that time I was already going to church, you know, so but it can be kind of, you know, if you really become pretty well versed in just what's going on, what's happening to us, it might be difficult to, you know, go to the Latin Mass. I mean, it is kind of intimidating. It's which is sad, but that's just, you know, how things have gone after Vatican II. It's kind of daunting to go on your own. So I'm hoping to take this guy, and I'm really, you know, I thank God, you know, for this opportunity. You know, this is, you know, he's this is going to be good for him, you know, for his family, for you know, it's a small contribution I can make, and it's just as much a boon, a benefit for me as it is for him. But beyond that, you know, myself personally, I do reach out to people a little bit, you know, where I go to Mass, just talking about, you know, some of the stuff that we always talk about, and, you know, they're, if they're not conversant in all the topics that we discuss, they're at least receptive, you know, because they're traditional, you know, they're already going to the Latin Mass. So that's about all I have to offer for my contributions in real life.
Yeah, I've never been to a Latin Mass. I know my wife and I, we went to a Roman Catholic church for the first, for me, it was the first time in probably, I don't know, 10 years. Just the one in town a couple weeks back. And I was just, I was just flabbergasted. I thought I was in a Protestant church. You know, I recognized some parts of the liturgy, but then they had like absolutely nothing on the walls. They had like Stations of the Cross, and that was it. But they were like wood carving with no color, just relief. And so they were like, you know, from like 20 feet away, it just looked like a square block of wood, you know? And
Yeah.
And there was a crucifix on the back wall, and that was about it. And then and I haven't really followed the Roman Church. I wasn't aware of this. Maybe this has been going on for a while, but I mean, they had women standing up on the front handing out the Eucharist. I was like,
yeah, it's
whoa, when, what?
Yeah.
And I would like to see the tradition someday, like in a Latin Mass church or a Western Rite Orthodoxy or something. But I was like, wow, I
Yeah,
can't believe
go to the
this.
Latin Mass. It's night and day, the difference. It's just it's the actual celebration of the Mass, and in the Novus Ordo Mass, it is valid, but it's there. You really kind of have to almost have like a superhuman singular focus on why you're there, what exactly is going on, to see through all of the novelty that's been introduced, and that's why if anyone approaches me, anyone from the alt-right, anyone in white nationalist circles, and I would be so happy, if they were approaching me about curiosity, interest in the Catholic Church. I'd be really happy because I would be able to help them to bypass that.
Yeah, I mean,
it is alarming.
we attend an Orthodox church, and I thought, it'd be interesting to go to a Roman Catholic church, just for the weekend, just to see what it is. And I was shocked.
I can't imagine how many people just get turned off. I mentioned this here once. That this guy that I worked with years ago, who's atheist, big brain, kind of, I don't know if I'd call him an SJW, but pretty far left, and we were talking about it once, and I was, he hadn't been to a Catholic Mass since the 70s, I think, since he was a kid, and I was talking about the Novus Ordo, and he was just like, even this person, an atheist, someone who, behind my back, most likely, made fun of my quaint, adherence to this, anachronistic doctrine, whatever. But even him, he was like, if I'm going to go to a Catholic Mass, I want it to be effing mysterious, and it's true. I mean, it's, when it's in Latin, when there's, when it's clear that it's not just about you, the priest is for the bulk of the service is facing away from you, and it's in a language that's been dead for some time, and it's the incense, and it's just you're there to do proper reverence to God. It's a big difference. But we're kind of getting off the topic, but I don't know if that's okay with Ian. I'll turn it over to him.
Well, okay.
I'm sorry. What was the topic for today? I missed it.
We didn't really have a set topic. We were just talking about different things. But I wanted to answer the question, Moose, that you asked about how we're making a difference in our own lives. And for me, all I can say is that I don't know to what extent I make a difference, because I feel like God uses people in ways that we aren't always aware of. Like, I remember one time when I was in high school, I had a friend who, he wasn't a Christian, but I think he maybe had some curiosity about Christianity. And I remember I stayed in touch with him for a few years after high school, and he sent me an email saying that, like, he really admired my devotion to my faith, and, like, I was kind of taken aback and humbled by that, because I was like, I didn't realize that I was even coming across that way, because, like, I'm just doing my thing. But maybe I'm not in contact with his friend anymore. I don't know what he's doing today, but maybe he's more open to the gospel now, or eventually maybe he's a Christian now. I don't know, but I mean, lately I've just been praying a lot that God will use me however he wants to, and that even if I don't, not by my strength, but through him, that he can use me for whatever purposes he has. And as for specifically, I guess I'm just like, I guess I just couldn't say specifically what I'm doing, but I I think it's possible God might be using me in ways I don't realize. I just try to do what I can to be there for people, or just be friendly to people if I can. And I mean, most of the people I interact with are people I work with or people in my family, and I don't have a lot of friends, I guess. So at least not friends I meet up with regularly in real life. So to me, I just look at it like I just have to do the best I can, and trust in God and pray that He'll use me however He needs me.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. I really don't know. It doesn't seem like I don't feel like I really have had much of an impact, but it's hard to gauge, hopefully. And if I haven't now, then soon, right?
Yeah. I remember Giovanni once, I think it was on one of these Hangouts, he told a story about one of the early church fathers was actually converted to Christianity by just some guy he met on the beach one day, and he never saw the guy again, but that guy inspired him to become a leader in the church. And so you never know, like, what little things, what seeds you might be planting just living your daily life. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's there are lots of reasons that you should do your best, to constantly confront yourself. Well, maybe that's probably not the right verb, but to challenge yourself, to just engage in some self-examination and ask yourself, am I working a little bit harder, than I did yesterday or last week, whatever, at giving my life to Christ. And because the more you do it, the more, not only will you be better able to be there for someone who might be reaching out to you, whether it's explicitly about the faith or just in need, just a human in need, but you will become more attuned to noticing that, because you just never know. You really, there's like I don't know which saint that was that you're talking about, Ian, but that's that's just a good example. You just don't ever know. That story does sound familiar, but you never know how you just being able to, and again, I've got to point out the rosary. That's what, when I do get to that decade of the joyful mysteries, when we're praying for charity, praying for the ability to bring Christ to others, that's it's a joy when you can reflect on that, when you're praying those Hail Marys, and you can just consider, like it may be specific people in your life, it may be a place where you find yourself regularly, am I there for people? So yeah, it's again, it's there are two sides. There's the people who for whom you might be making a big difference, in their encounter with you. But there's also yourself, and the more that you can, act as Christ asked us and demanded of us, and set an example for us. The obviously, that you're going to be doing better for yourself as well.
Mm-hmm. I was about to say something, but it just slipped my mind. Darn it! I hate when they haven't. So, anybody else got something? No. Okay. You guys there?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay,
And
good. We just went silent there for a second. I didn't know what that was about. Go on.
well, I think I'm pretty much tapped out from my, my great expertise.
Your great ramble.
Yeah, my great pearls of wisdom on the topic. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. The bottom line is that no matter what, whether you're living in, 3rd century Assyria or, 12th century Aragon or whatever, it's incumbent on you to be constantly at all times, doing your best to imitate Christ, doing your best to, I believe, through his mother, through his blessed mother, to come to him, to give yourself to him, to open yourself to him, to transform yourself through him. And, now more than ever, when, so I'm saying, like, even at times where, you're in a Christian society, even at those times, you have to do your best to be a good Christian. Now more than ever, it's I don't know how I personally would keep my sanity if I wasn't channeling my energy into trying to save my soul. And you have to remember that there are the majority of us who are involved in alt-right thought, white nationalism, reactionary thinking. We're not even there. We're not even we're not going to mass. We're not we're not making a point of praying all the time. We're not working on specific sins, and so it's vital. It's vital that you're testing yourself, that you're trying to improve. You're trying to work towards that holiness. That if you're blessed, you'll the state in which you'll die. So, and if you're doing that, you can be there for the majority of us who are just so lost. Even guys in our movement who are, very intelligent, very very confident, outwardly, just very good at moving through life and dealing with the things that need to be dealt with, that most of us probably couldn't do. Even they are going to need this, because success in the world will only get you so far, and the 4 things that St. Thomas Aquinas told us that we replace God with only get you so far. The wealth, power, pleasure, and esteem, or honor, or fame, whatever. And those things aren't in and of themselves terrible, but they're no replacement for God. So if even people like that, people that are doing well in the world, because let's face it, a lot of us are, like I said at the beginning of this talk, we're kind of struggling, and we're kind of a mess. We're in a society that kind of has us back on our heels anyway. And then when we kind of wake up and acknowledge that, and we're at odds with great powers, as well as our peers. So
yeah,
all of us need this. And it's just more important than ever. And so be patient. Be patient with people, even if they're rude, even if even if they're insulting. It doesn't mean that you you reward bad behavior, or you give what is holy to dogs, but you try to be patient, try to be there, and remember that there was a time when you yourself, you did not have God. You didn't even have the desire to be reaching out to God. So you got to remember that.
I remember what I wanted to say earlier that slipped my mind. Have any of you ever read the book How to Win Friends and Influence People?
By Carnegie?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What book was that?
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh,
I read it a
no.
long time ago. I don't remember a whole lot.
Yeah, I remember reading about maybe 10 years ago or so. I think I was in college, maybe like a little longer than that ago. But I remember one thing in that book that always stuck with me is that he's saying like what you should do is take an interest in other people's lives and like actually genuinely. He said like don't just conversationally show interest, but like actually be interested, like try to like actually be interested in learning about the other person, because people really do like it when people are interested in their stuff or in their lives and the things that they're interested in. And that was just kind of I was just kind of thinking about that while we were talking about, because we are talking about how to influence people, and I kind of try to do that when I'm talking to people. Like I do try to show interest in what they're talking about. Not that like if I can, but I mean I do think it does, in my experience, help people sort of warm up to you if you show that you're interested in them, or you might like ask like specific questions about things they're talking about, not just be like, oh, that's cool or something. So like if you really engage with them, it will make people like you more, and maybe will make people more open to your message, or well, not our message, but the gospel. Excuse me. So that was just a thought I had, and maybe that some of you guys know that already, but it definitely seems to have an effect.
Well, this is. Were you about to say something, Thomas? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say this is I think why Christianity found such fertile ground, among the European men, which isn't to say that it's a that it's not for other people as well, but this is something that's always kind of characterized us, is the not just the willingness to kind of empathize, with people, but people around you, people people that you come across, but it's just kind of an instinct that we have, and it's clearly something that's that others have found that they can manipulate in us, and it's and that's a big issue, but it's true, and the sad thing is that in the current state where we find ourselves right now is it's again we're kind of back on our heels, and we're just discombobulated, and we often forget about that, just simple kindness, to others, and it's true, people do respond to it. It can literally change someone's day, and maybe more.
Yeah, I know from being the recipient of such kindness, it can really change your day. It can really make you happier.
Kind of has to do with where I've been at as far as what I've been trying to do to make things better. We've got a decent sized garden this year, and one of the things has been going around to my different neighbors and kind of meeting them and, hey, can you use some zucchinis? Can you use some cucumbers? Can you use this? Can you use that? You know, giving away some of the produce and the excess that I don't necessarily have. I've met a couple people in real life now. It doesn't seem like there's a lot around me, but both the people that I've met are people that don't have any presence on the internet. They don't have Twitters, they don't have blogs, but they found my blog, and from one of them leaving a comment, and then the other one is a friend of his that was also introduced him to it. And I had to drive a couple hours to meet, but that's cool, building some relationships and stuff too. But I feel like one of the things that is a problem with the Christian dissident right, or whatever you want to call it, is that it's just internet-based movement instead of actual. I mean, real community is got to be local, and so you don't necessarily get to pick who the people that are in your city or town or village or whatever. But I mean, that's kind of where we've got to start with a lot of this. And so I've been trying to just build relationships with the people around me, even if a lot of them I may not have a whole lot in common philosophically or whatever else. And I guess that's my answer to the question of what I'm doing or trying to do in real life.
That's definitely good. Building social capital networks, things like that. It's like one of those things we always talk about doing, but a lot of us have a hard time actually doing. At least I know, from my own experience, that's how it is. I do wonder if maybe like meetup groups or something like that might be a good idea. I had somebody on Twitter suggest that to me once, that I should start my own meetup group in the area and see if I can find like-minded people that way.
Yeah, it might be a good idea, especially if so people. Well, I guess it doesn't matter so much with you. You have all these people now thanks to this, but for a lot of people, it's easy to feel isolated. So definitely, if you can do it, meet up with others.
The only problem with me is that I'm kind of an introvert, so it's hard for me to do things like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of us probably are. I know I'm pretty introverted most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if it's like I'm working and also organizing things like this Hangout, and also have to have a schedule that like my work schedule doesn't always allow me to plan very far in advance, because it's not like a typical 9-to-5 sort of job. So a lot of stuff can be up in the air. So if like I'm working this job and then also got to coordinate all these different things, plus I need my usual sort of resting time, like it can be hard to organize these things. But I do sometimes wonder how many people in my own area might be really good friends. Actually, I do have a friend who I haven't talked to him in a while, but I think he's probably still in this area. I should maybe see about getting in touch with him again, because he gave me a call last year during the playoffs, which I guess is almost a year ago now, because the baseball playoffs are coming up again soon. But maybe I should see about meeting with him again. And he's actually a Christian, so like I should probably touch base with him and see how he's doing. So even just things like that might be beneficial.
One of my challenges is that we all work, and I'm like you. I don't have a typical job. My schedule changes a lot, and then I come home and there's trees to prune, and there's brush to burn, and there's fences to build, and I love doing all those things, don't get me wrong. There's it's fall, and my state bow hunting's open now. So there's that. We've been putting up applesauce and stuff the last few days. There's just so much that I have to like focus on pulling myself out of building up my just family and home and say, you know, neighbors and community is important too. And because that's a value to me, I will try to go out of my way to try to find ways to build that. But I don't know. I just remember when I was growing up, neighbors from, I mean, we lived out in the country when I was growing up on 10 acres, and the neighbors from 3 houses down were always over, and the neighbors from 3 houses over the other way were always over. And, you know, you drive a couple houses down if you were doing a project and needed a sawzall and didn't have a sawzall, and borrow, you know, Fred's sawzall. And, you know, the one neighbor that had a big tractor would plow everybody's driveway out when it was a big snowstorm. And like, out of that whole group, I don't know if any of them went to the same church, but there was, you know, that community there, and that just doesn't seem to exist anymore.
Well, you know, my brother actually lives in an area that was affected by one of the hurricanes recently, and he didn't get hit too hard, but you know, I think there might have been some trees down around different parts of his area, and I think that from what I heard, there were some people in the neighborhood kind of banding together to help clean stuff up. So, you know, in times of crisis, people can come together sometimes.
Well, this is you know, this is another issue, and this is why, you know, I think a pretty good argument can be made that, at least for right now in the foreseeable future, that you know, activity online is probably the best. It's probably the safest. It's probably the most effective, because, you know, what Moose is talking about, and I remember that sort of atmosphere growing up as well. You know, it was you know, when you grow up in a neighborhood, you know, our town, where most people are like you, and, you know, and this is something that we've been, you know, programmed by Zog to you know, feel is somehow bad, you know, being among your own. But when you grow up, you know, that's just kind of a natural state for most European peoples. You have that feeling of community, you know. And again, going back to what I was saying earlier, even if everyone isn't necessarily, you know, a you know, extraordinarily devout Christian, there's still that, you know, foundational underlying Christian ethos, and that's gone. You know, for you know, when it's, you know, when you're, you know, like I'm in the suburbs, and you know, kind of bordering on rural really, but, you know, it's even fractured here, you know, and it's been taken from us. And so, you know, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to, you know, if the opportunity comes up, you know, to do things in real life. Absolutely. But I would also, you know, point out, and I know this is kind of obvious, that you got to be careful doing that. You know, you know, there, you know, our opponents right now, they're not just, you know, disgruntled, you know, overzealous opponents. They're satanic. There's no other way to put it. These people are satanic. You know, they're agents of chaos, and they are more than happy to hurt you. You know, not just through doxing, but, you know, and they've been shown by and large that they can do so with impunity. So that's something to think about, obviously. But yeah, I mean, always be ready as a Christian, you know, to be there for someone. You know, obviously be cautious at all times, and you know, but you know, once in a while, an opportunity will arise, and you can do that. It's, again, we're just really at the preliminary stages of just kind of waking up to what's going on. So it's easy to get, you know, enthusiastic, you know, and get excited. I mean, you know, before the Charlottesville thing, you know, I was talking with Ian, and I was like, yeah, you know, maybe if I was able to do it and I, you know, had some more money, you know, maybe, you know, that'd be kind of cool if we could go do this Charlottesville thing. And, you know, you know, this is after some successful demonstrations and get-togethers, you know, with the alt-right, and I, you know, I wasn't even, you know, I was pretty naive about it, and you know, look what happened. You know, I'm glad we didn't go. You know, I'm not as young as a lot of these guys, and you know, I've had some significant health issues over the last couple of years, so I'm glad I wasn't there. So you know, you gotta be careful, and you know, Moose, you know, you're doing what God wants. You know, you have a family, you're taking care of your family, this is how God made us. This is what God asks of us, you know, is to and it's a joy and a privilege as a man, you know, to do that, to be there for your family, and to fulfill God's mandate, and as a man and a father and a husband.
Yeah, I don't know. Especially since my son's been born, I've become a lot more concerned about the state of the world that he's going to grow up in and all of that, you know. And I don't think that we can just batten down the hatches and, you know, oh, I'm just going to focus on my family and whatever, because, you know, the state of society does affect us and does affect our kids. You know.
Yeah, that actually kind of reminds me of something I was thinking about. I don't know, maybe some of you, I don't know, I know some of you watch Millennial Woes, but he recently had a video called, I think, Conservative Acquiescence, I think is what he called it, and he's talking about this British conservative politician who was being asked about a case where there was a family that pulled their son out of a school because the school was allowing a boy to wear a dress to school, and the parents didn't approve of that, so they pulled their son out of it. And they asked him, you know, what do you think of this, on some radio show? And he's saying, like, well, I think that, you know, parents should have the option of homeschooling if that's what they desire, or if they disagree. And Millennial Woes was saying, like, you know, it's all well and good to say that we should have the option of withdrawing, but, like, you know, you're basically disengaging, and you're like, you're kind of ceding ground to your enemies when you do that. And like, I get that, because I've often thought, you know, if I have children, I don't want to have to raise them in this world we live in. But at the same time, it's true that there does have to be a certain point where you know, obviously you want your children to get married someday, you want your children to keep going, so they have to have connections with other people, and yeah, I guess it comes back to, it's important to have communities and connections, so that, you know, it's not just withdrawn to like one small family group that's kind of doing it alone.
That is something we're going to have to work towards in the near future. I mean, you and I have discussed this, Ian. You know, a time will come when we're actually going to have to start talking about, hey, you know, maybe, you know, you, Ian, and Moose and his family, me and my family, whatever. You know, maybe, you know, this area of New Hampshire, this area of Idaho, Montana, whatever, you know, it looks like a good, you know, Christian community. You know, it's you know, you're away from, you know, the metropolitan areas, whatever, because, you know, they're it is likely going to be a time when community isn't just a matter of, you know, something that you do because it's the right thing to do, and it's how we're built, but it's, you know, it may be what actually helps you to stay alive. You know, once things start to degenerate further.
Well, it does sound like some of those initiatives are already being done. You know, certain groups are they're like, what is the group, Cascadia or whatever? I think people are moving out into certain areas, and they are trying to form communities now, and you know, so it does seem to be happening already.
Yeah. Yeah, you just hope that these things can keep growing so that, I mean, I don't know if this Cascadia group is Christian at all, but definitely.
No, I don't think they are, but it was just one that came to mind of, you know, dissident, like, countercultural, right wing, however you want to term it.
Yeah. Communities being formed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough call because, like, yeah, it's, I mean, I don't have any children, but I do have nephews and nieces who I worry about a lot, just because I worry about what kind of world they're growing up in. I mean, they're all still pretty young, but I just hope that they're not going to get destroyed by the corrupt society we live in. And I hope that they'll either have the good sense to see it for themselves, or if their parents will lead them in the right direction. Some cases I'm more optimistic about that than others, but I won't get into that. But yeah, it is something that I think all weighs heavily on all of us. Hey, William, how you doing? We haven't heard from you yet. You there, William?
Sorry, just unmuting. Sorry. Pretty good.
Hey, it's good. Good. Glad to have you back after you weren't with us last time.
Was it just last time? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think that's all it was.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, we it's been like a month since the last one we did, so yeah, it's always good to have old friends with us again.
Old friends, isn't that a Simon and Garfunkel song?
Is it? I don't know that one.
I think so. I think it's a Garfunkel one.
Oh, okay. I'll have to look into that. And...
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on anything we've been saying here?
Well, I just posted the Revelation 18:4, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive of her plagues." I mean, at what point is that true? I don't know. I mean, certainly people in the 1800s would like Sodom on crack that we live in, but you know, it's sort of the Lot syndrome. It slowly creeps up, and you kind of get used to things, and you stop even thinking or remembering that maybe things could be another way, or what the implications of living another way. It's not just sort of like atomized righteousness. It's actually the kinds of society and cultural relationships you develop, right? So I don't know. It's one I always kind of try to sort out. At what point? I mean, we're you know, not not asked to isolate ourselves from the world, except apparently at the very end. if we take Revelation seriously as a prophetic vision, it's you know, at some point the world does become so corrupt that it is our duty to remove ourselves from it.
Yeah.
How to quantify that, I don't have an answer.
Mm-hmm.
I may be too corrupted already to even see how, you know, how degenerate my own existence is.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, William.
Oh, sorry. I will try to. Is that better?
There are those nice dulcet tones that I've grown accustomed to.
Is that better?
Lovely.
Good.
I could hear what you were saying, William, but it was a little soft.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Hopefully the people can hear you all right, though.
It's this system that I run it through. I can't tell how much is computer and how much is me. Yeah, just the question is, at what point do we, and what point is it time to pull ourselves out? And how do you do that? What does this verse in Revelation 18 mean?
We should probably look at it in the context to have an idea of that. I know that on the Godcast, I think M. Poland says, never read a Bible verse, always read the context of it. So.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. But it's about the end. It's, it's basically about the end time. And the state of the world is such that, yeah. I mean, this is referring to the harlot, so.
Fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a home for demons and a haunt for every evil spirit, a haunt for every unclean and detestable bird. For all the nations have drunk the maddening wine of her adulteries. The kings of the earth committed adultery with her, and the merchants of the earth grew rich from her excessive luxuries. Then I heard another voice from heaven say, "Come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins, so that you will not receive any of her plagues, for her sins are piled up to heaven, and God has remembered her crimes. Give back to her as she has given. Pay her back double for what she has done. Mix her a double portion from her own cup. Give her as much torture and grief as the glory and luxury she gave herself. In her heart she boasts, I sit as queen, I am not a widow, and I will never mourn. Therefore in one day her plagues will overtake her, death, mourning, and famine. She will be consumed by fire, for mighty is the Lord God who judges her." Yeah, it's pretty condemnatory. Is that even a word?
It is now.
It is now.
Okay. I should see if that's a word, actually. Yeah, I mean, it's sorry, somebody was talking in the background. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, he says, "My people should come out of her, so he will set aside the holy ones."
Guess it depends on who you think it is. I'm sidetracking the conversation here, maybe, but it's during the Reformation, the Protestants, especially the radical Protestants, assumed this was the Catholic Church. Other interpretations believe that it's the Jews, that this is speaking about Jerusalem. So, and others just Babylon. That's the Rastafarian interpretation is just just Western capitalism, basically.
Yes, it's a good source of theological insight, the Rastafarians.
Yeah.
Condemnatory is a word, apparently. So.
Oh, solid.
Yeah, I knew it sounded right. Well, yeah, I mean, I do think that ultimately we do have to, like you mentioned, Lot and how he left Sodom and Gomorrah for being because it was just too debauched. But I mean, it was I do think we should try to engage where possible, because I mean, like, we should be willing to, fight the battles. Well, by fight the battles, I mean, like, we should be willing to try until it's clear that, it's a lost cause. If people eventually make their decision and reject God, then so that we can do, it's on them. So yeah, it's funny how a lot of things we've been discussing here are things that I've been thinking about lately. Just concepts.
Yeah, it's easy to just feel kind of fatalistic, I guess. When when you look around and see what's happening. But you know, it's another opportunity, you know, to strengthen your faith, you know, to trust in Christ, and to you know, I'm not saying that we should completely turn away from the world, you know, inwardly, and but just to remind yourself that, you know, we're in exile here, and you know, it's also an opportunity to pray, you know, not just for ourselves, but for I've actually been meaning to tweet, you know, some recommendations of if you do pray the rosary every day, and if you feel like you can add an extra decade, you know, it's you know, one really good thing to pray for is just pray for the sinners in our society, you know, pray for you know, and that's what our Lady told us to do in Fatima. You can, you know, this is kind of off topic, but you can also pray for priests, and you know, I can't remember who said it, but someone said that we get the priests that we deserve. I think it might be Father Philip Wolf, who's who gives superb homilies. You can find them all over YouTube, especially on the channel Sensus Fidelium. But you know, pray for priests that we deserve to get good priests, and then pray that for them to be protected from Satan, because you know, they're a favorite target for him. And you know, pray for the souls in purgatory. But just praying for our society, you know, praying because it's such a mess. You know, it's just such a mess. And I'm not going to speak for others, but it's something that I've really had to work at. You know, just remembering to pray more. You know, it's like you get so caught up in what's going on around you, and you know, even if it's just for a moment, you know, just reaching out, and you know, just asking Christ to you know, to listen to you for a moment, you know, to give you peace, you know, pray to the Blessed Mother. So yeah, you know, it's a mess. It's probably, you know, as Christian in the live chat said, you know, it's probably the end of the U.S. as we know it, you know, and that, you know, that could get really messy. Some Catholics, you know, feel that this is a great chastisement that's going to be coming to America for, you know, how sinful we've gotten, you know, for our, if not becoming, you know, our attempts or our imitation of the whore of Babylon. And it's going to be messy, but always pray, you know, pray without ceasing.
You know, something you said there, Lumen, reminded me of another concept. You mentioned how the priests are our favorite target of Satan, and that is another thing where sometimes I think it's hard to be totally open about your faith, at least for me, because sometimes I feel like there are people out there who are kind of looking to tear you down. So if you're really open about it, that kind of puts a target on your back. And so sometimes I'll admit I'm not always as open about my beliefs as I should be, because I'm afraid of being judged, or I'm afraid that people are going to try to mess with me or something over it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you can't, you know, if you're in a situation where you're clearly, you know, not dealing with people who are speaking with you or interacting with you or debating with you in good faith, then, you know, there's, you know, the Bible tells you you don't have to throw your pearls before swine.
Yeah.
But you know, the Bible also tells us that, you know, blessed are you if you're persecuted unjustly in my name. You know, it's the thing is that, you know, that Christians have always, you know, and this is kind of, you know, it's kind of that, I think it's a World War II cliche, you know, you're when you're, you know, when you're getting flack, you know, you're over the target. And, you know, Christians are a target for Satan and for, you know, people who work, whether knowingly or not, for Satan, you know, for his cause. And you know, it's because it's a threat, you know, and people, you know, even people who are just completely atheistic and secular, they recognize, you know, and they recoil at the idea that you have to examine yourself, that you have to, that you know, your depravity, you know, your pathology, is not something that should be, you know, seen as a virtue, you know, that you should confront it, that you should transform yourself. You know, they don't like that. They don't like, and I think that's where a lot of that comes from. You know, it's just, and Christians will always remind people of that. And, you know, it's the bottom line is that Christians are, to this day, being killed for their faith. And it's you know, it's just horrific what's happening to Christians in the part of the world where, you know, whence our faith began.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as Jesus says, I found the passage in the Bible while you were talking there, because he said, where was it? Sorry, what's my place here? Whoever acknowledges me before men, I will also acknowledge him before my Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before men, I will disown him before my Father in heaven. So we have to be prepared to, you know, not hide our faith. We have to be willing to be open about it.
Yeah, and in addition to that, St. Peter tells us to be prepared to always give an answer to anyone that asks us the reason for our faith.
Hello.
Hello. Oh, okay, good. I thought maybe.
Sorry, I was muted
kind
there.
of.
I thought it froze.
Yeah. I thought maybe
Did
I'd
you hear
lost a connection or something.
I don't
Did you
know
hear
what
what I
just
said?
happened, but my volume apparently went all the way down. I didn't hear whatever was going on.
Did you guys hear me speaking after Moose?
No.
I didn't.
Okay, yeah. I had myself muted apparently, and I didn't realize I was muted. Sorry. But I was just saying, we were talking about Peter, and I was like, you know, Peter was forgiven for denying Jesus on the day of his arrest, and so, but like there's the part where you know, we all know he denied Jesus 3 times. Then later Jesus said, you know, Simon Peter, do you love me? He says, yes, Lord, of course I love you. He asked him that 3 times, and just to kind of remind him that, yeah, you denied me before that. And so I do sometimes realize, yeah, I probably have denied, not, well, yeah, I guess basically denied it a few times just because I was afraid of, you know, having a target on my back. But, you know, I've been trying to overcome that
Well,
take these.
it's
Yeah, go
it's
on.
understandable. I know how you feel, but I mean, there's a long history, isn't there, of persecution of Christians and martyrdom. That not that we have to, you know, put ourselves in harm's way necessarily, but it's just a fact of life, and I guess we got to all just kind of get over it. If tell someone you're Christian and they just kind of like smirk or laugh at you or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It's you know, there is some nuance here. It's not that if you find yourself for whatever reason, um, I don't know, a Game of Thrones party or whatever, among people that are just like, just
Degenerate.
yeah, just like, if you find yourself in a den of debauchery, uh, post, post, I'm not going to say it. But it's not like you have to like start, quoting the gospel, and what it means essentially is that you don't seek to hide it. You don't take because again, if you're with a bunch of people like that, and I mean, that was just like the first thing I could think of, like a bunch of people hanging out, whatever, doing bong hits and, drinking Jägermeister, watching Game of Thrones, it's like, what could possibly be gained, by confronting these, this, and
Now, don't slander Jägermeister.
yeah, no, I'm not. I'm Jägermeister was an innocent victim of this, this horrible scenario I just thought of. But I mean, there's really nothing you can gain. However, if in the course of, being at this hypothetical event, which I doubt any of us would be at, but yeah, if you come across someone, that you end up talking to, this is what I found, like you just talk to someone as a person, you start, you take an approach that's kind of antithetical to what people are used to, what people expect, and what people expect generally is very little. They expect, someone who's taken an interest in them. They expect ulterior motives, more or less. And if you start with that approach of, yeah, I'm listening to you. I care about what you have to say, and that's perhaps the opening, where you begin, where if perhaps there's a remark about, like, wow, thank you, no one's listened to me about this, whatever, and you say, well, this is my faith, this is what I do, and there will be perhaps a time in your life where you do have to be heroic, about your faith, and you can't deny it. So that there is nuance, and I'm not saying that in the weasel way, where you like, where you justify sinfulness, but there's again, all the answers are right there in the Bible. There are times when you don't give what is holy to dogs, you don't throw your pearls before swine, you kick the dust off your feet and walk away. So there's it's not always a black and white thing.
Yeah, that kind of reminded me, just as an aside, I don't know if this is the case in other liturgies, but in the liturgy of St. John Chrysostom, there's a part where you say, I will not speak of your mysteries to your enemies.
Yes, that is part of the Orthodox liturgy. I know that part.
Yeah, and I mean, and there are also, in the Psalms and the wisdom books, there are always appeals to God, to, save me from the schemes of evil men, and there's like every other human endeavor properly ordered, there's a time and a place for everything.
Right. There's only so much to be gained, especially, I guess, in your example there with the bongs and Everything.
Yeah, and that's that's kind of that's a little kind of over the top. But even even just
That's
like
a good one.
yeah. I mean that's I'm kind of thinking back to my younger years. But I mean even just the the silly arguments that you see on Twitter, or YouTube. It's there's a time when you're being humble. When you're just trying to work through the Sacred Heart of Christ. You're trying to draw from that, and then there's a time where maybe you're just being prideful. Maybe you're using what you should be using, for your salvation and for the potential edification of others. Maybe you're using that as as a bludgeon. So there's again self-reflection, self-examination.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, in a situation like Twitter, or YouTube, or that, a lot of times, if the conversation is just going to end up in insults, which is quite common on Twitter, at least, then so perhaps best to just leave it. What was going to be gained in that?
Yeah, I know sometimes I've walked away from a few conversations because I realized that I was thinking about when Jesus sent out the 12. He said, like, if they will not accept your message, then kick the dust off your feet as you leave, or something. It's like, just people can reject what you say, and you can just have to say at some point, all right, this isn't going anywhere. I let them face. They've heard what I have to say, and if they're not going to accept it, move on. So yeah, anyway, this has been kind of a slow-paced conversation, hasn't it?
But what conversation?
Slow-paced. It seems like we have a lot of gaps here. Everybody's afraid to say something.
Well, all I can say is the best thing you can do as a Christian is be obedient to God. Follow the rules. My faith has 6 precepts that I try to follow. Go to Mass faithfully. Pray often. Do your best to be humble. Do your best to avoid the near occasion of sin. Repent. I can't emphasize enough. If you are Catholic, or does the Orthodox Church also pray the Rosary? I would assume they would.
No.
Anyone?
No, we have prayer books and different prayers, but that's not one of them.
Well, just it's just crucial for me, because it's a constant. It's every single day, and it's a constant. It's not just a reminder of what it means to be a Christian. It's a rediscovery, or sometimes like a new discovery. When you meditate on the the mysteries of our Savior's life, and consider them in their temporal context, in that when they happened, what they meant, and try to connect 2 millennia later, what you see around you in your life, to that. It's there are new discoveries, about our faith. And so, that's what you have to do. You have to, every day, take up your cross, follow Christ. Remember that he's the good shepherd. I know Ian's doing Bible study. Read your Bible. I'm no one to talk. It's not uncommon for me to, be found wanting when it comes to being familiar with a part of the Bible, or recalling it, whatever. But we all know what to do. And it's difficult to do. It's a constant challenge, and it should be. It's a especially these days. When everything around us is, it's not just tempting. It's almost demanding that we stop living a Christian life. But that's all you have to do is just follow the rules, be obedient to God, and strengthen your faith, and remember that we're on a pilgrimage here. This is not our home, and we're commanded to do our best to get there, to get home, and do what we can to bring others with us.
Yeah,
State the obvious.
I was going to say, for the Orthodox, other than morning and evening prayers and say midday prayers, our prayer rule consists mostly of the Jesus prayer, which is simply, Lord Jesus Christ, the Son of God, have mercy on me, the sinner. That's repeated, often 33 times or 100 times at a time or whatever. And I've found it very useful and helpful for me. Just to say the Jesus prayer. Oftentimes, when I'm doing other things, or things are coming up, it just a few repetitions here and there really makes quite a difference.
Yeah, definitely. I know that's about the have mercy on me, a sinner. That's very powerful words.
Well, and that's what I mean about the rosary is and that's I think that's maybe somewhat comparable, Moose, is and it should always be about humility, because no matter how pious you get, you're still a man. You still, even if you're and then there's we don't have to get going on this topic right now, but then there's the issue of becoming lukewarm. Even after you've been involved, if you've been you're you actually have practiced it so long that it's a habit, almost like a skill. But it's always about being humble. A humbled and contrite heart, God will not spurn. That's what God wants. In my faith, this is this is why we have the sacrament of reconciliation, where you come to God and formally acknowledge your sinfulness and receive absolution. And it's always about being humble. And one thing about humility that people either don't understand, or they misunderstand or forget, is that humility isn't merely being meek, being I think people have the impression sometimes that it's you're just timid, you're obsequious and pliable or whatever. But it's also about understanding who you are, what your potential is, being strong, being confident in seeking and hopefully understanding, God's plan for you. So it's not just about, and again, this is something that's just been turned against us, where people people portray Christian humility as, this almost like a form of cowardice. But being humble and what you're talking about, Moose, and with prayer, it's and it's funny. The last the last time I went to confession, that was the last thing that the priest said to me is, pray for me, a sinner, and I was just so moved by that, because it was a very humble act, and that's, if you do that, you're remembering, that's the fear of God, the awe, that the Creator, is that you can actually, in as much as we can on this side of heaven, that you can stand in the presence of the Creator and reach out for Him in these. This is why it's just so sad. It's tragic. All these guys on the alt-right, that don't. It's not even that they don't have this; they don't even know about it. That's why any opportunity we get, we will have to witness.
Yeah, I think it helps to show that we do get a certain joy out of life that maybe they don't, because I do hear a lot of, not pessimism per se, but there is sort of a feeling of uncertainty among a lot of them. That's why I think that kind of leads to a certain amount of desperation for a lot of these alt-right guys. Like I remember one of the calls with Mike Enoch and Chris Cantwell. I think it was one of those. He was saying, like, I mean, victory's not guaranteed for us, and like, oh yeah, definitely not. So, but I'm thinking, well, yeah, maybe they, like, I guess because I put my faith in God, I'm able to sort of let go a little bit and just think, it's in His hands, and I don't have to worry as much because I can't save the world by myself. So I have to have faith and trust Him. But these guys who don't have that, they have to. It just kind of gets them, like when they see what's happening, and they, understandably they're upset, but they feel like they're all they have. So maybe just by showing them a certain amount of contentment, that will appeal to them.
And real courage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like sometimes when I look at the stuff that goes on today, it's easy to be despairing, and just being able to put your faith in God is so helpful.
Well, it absolutely is, in the practical sense, in the sense of just keeping yourself from going mad in the world. But I don't know how many of you can relate to this, but it can, sadly, again, when you get just so distracted and wrapped up with the madness of the world the way it is right now, it can sometimes be lost on us that you have to do it. We have to do it, because I listened to a homily recently, and the priest said, 100 years ago, you did not exist, and 100 years from now, you will either be saved for eternity or lost for eternity, and that's the true humility. I mean, it should be, and it's the Knights of Columbus. Their motto is tempus fugit, memento mori. Time flees. Remember death, and it's you have to do it. And it's absolutely true that it's, you know, an invaluable kind of, I don't know if I should put it this way, but like a byproduct of working towards your salvation is you can, you know, make some sense of the, you know, the dissolution and the you know, the chaos and the anxiety and despair of this world, and you can, it's something that you can rely on. You know, it's eternal, and it will help you to, it will help to see you through. But ultimately, it's what you have to do, because, you know, you really are a, you know, you're a soul, and it's there's nothing more important than, you know, where your soul is going to go when these days are done.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, death is one of those things that I don't like to think about too much, but just the uncertainty of knowing when it's going to happen can sometimes be scary to think about. But yeah, I mean, it is good to keep that in mind, because you never know when it's going to happen.
No one knows the hour.
The death pause.
We'll edit that out, or actually we can't. I once tried to see if there's a way to edit these, but I couldn't figure it out, so I don't know.
Oh, you just have to download them into an editor as a video, or download them as a YouTube with a YouTube video downloader, and then edit them in a. At least that's what I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I could do simple editing. I don't. William could probably, because you know, you're like you're the reacto folk superstar of the alt-right, and
That's right.
but I'm just joking. But no, you are.
I'm the only one contending for the title, so.
Well, and it's going to stay that way, because you know, no one else is foolish enough to step up. I mean,
that's true.
I thought about it for like a minute, and I was like, no. Yeah, you can edit. I can edit out basic, you know, like because I have Adobe Creative Cloud, and one of the programs is Audition, so I can do. I do that once in a while, you know, like if I download something and I want to edit something out. But William can probably actually do some decent stuff to it.
Yeah, I'm just self-taught, so I have lots of holes in my knowledge.
Same here. I mean, I'm mainly into visual stuff. I'm honestly, for the past 10-15 years, I've been, you know, solely focused on Photoshop, Illustrator, and design, and Acrobat Pro. But I mean, these days, just I'm mainly doing illustration, so just pretty much Photoshop. Digital art posting on Ian's Christian Hangout.
Yeah, you're definitely good at that Photoshop.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, he makes some nice things.
So we've been talking for about 2 hours now. Does anybody want to? What? Wait,
Oh no, I was just saying it's like the autist Christian collective. We're all lost in our own worlds.
I was just getting ready to. I was getting ready to hear Ian say, "Is something funny that you'd like to share with the rest of the group, Mr. Teleologic?"
Yeah, that's right.
Well, in my defense, I've been doing a lot of other things while I listen to you guys, and only unmuting when I actually have something to say.
Same here.
It's cool.
Yeah, sounds like you're a very good husband there.
Well,
and father.
I try.
Yeah, that's.
It sounded like you were out. it sounded like you were out, filling up the trough for the horses. It sounded like some water in the basin or something.
Oh, I think that was, I did a few dishes when I came in. I was outside when I started. I was smoking a pipe right after supper. Then I had to go put all the chickens to bed. And there's a black walnut tree over there, so I picked up all the ones that fell, about a couple pecks worth. And then I had a brush pile that I've been burning slowly. It rained last night, so it was a good time to burn on it because it's too big to burn when it's dry. So I threw some gas on that and burned some of that down. And then I came inside, and she was putting the baby to bed, so I did some of the dishes. And I think I said something during there, so I probably unmuted. That's probably what you guys heard.
Yeah, we heard the water rushing a couple times when you were talking. Somebody on the text chat said, "Is somebody taking a bath?"
See, no, that would be the best way to do a reactionary hangout, would be to be in the tub with a glass of scotch and a big cigar.
Well, my name is Simon. No, that's...
Yeah, I don't know. It might be.
I can show you cartoons and stuff. Yeah.
Well, it might be better to be like in like a Turkish bath, like like getting a steam and having your back thrashed with some twigs and just like then having your scotch and like talking about your vast tracts of land with the guy next to you. And
that sounds like cultural appropriation to me.
I think it might be, yeah.
It sounds good, but you can't have a smoke in a steam room.
That's a good point. Well, okay, how about maybe in your study, in your smoking jacket in front of a crackling fire.
Tumbler going.
It's getting a little goofy.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking serious for 2 hours now. The third hour is where we usually start acting silly. Yeah. Well, then there's that 8 hour one where like the last half of it was just silliness.
Well, I bet if it was 8 hours, yeah.
Yeah, but at that point,
total off topic.
I almost wonder, Ian, if you should have gone back to, if you should put a time limit on them for how long you let them go, because I know some of the ones that I've missed, I've gone back to listen to, and I'm like, it's not going to happen, Well,
I think usually, like by the end of it, the second half, it's usually where it's less serious. But we just lost Moose. I think it's maybe he accidentally hit the button or something. So I'll respond to that if he comes back.
He dropped his computer into the sink. Oh, there he is.
Oh, okay, good. He's back. Yeah, I was going to say. Last thing you said was that sometimes you see the length on them and you think they're too long. Well, I was just saying usually the last hour is probably where it kind of just becomes people just goofing off and chatting about stuff.
It should be like, I don't know. It should be like an alt-right, gossip hour. Like what you've seen happening on Twitter or podcasts you listen to, or the crazy thing that Emily Yuka said about Christians this week, or just some random stuff. The kids like that. The kids like that dancing, and the
kids are hungry for it.
I don't know. I don't like the idea of gossiping per se, but like
I didn't mean like literally gossiping. I just meant kind of like lighthearted, where we're not talking about how we're going to hell in a handbasket, and
yeah, we can just make pop culture references and things like that, and do some Gen X posting or something. I don't know.
Did we talk earlier much about? I mean, I know when I came in, you guys were talking about just the troubles of living in this world, but Nick B. Steves, God bless us. How are you?
Hey, Nick. Peace,
Wow.
Steve.
It's been a while since I've been on. I figured I should try to join you for at least a little bit. I was listening to some old shows a few days ago and just trying to catch up with you guys. So figured I'd come on. It's been a while. So hello, everyone. I hope I didn't interrupt the conversation. I just got home from choir practice, actually. So.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
I was just
remotely.
pontificating.
See what we got on here.
Pontificating, yeah.
Teleologic, I know him well. Moose, I know well. Ian, of course, I know you. Lumen, I thought was an interesting fella. I can't remember why. I remember listening to him on a earlier, whatever these are called. Not really podcasts. They're more like Hangouts, I guess, or whatever.
Or Hangout podcast.
Hangout cast.
He's a papist like you.
Oh, good. Very good. Very good. Yes, defending the faith.
Yep, that's why I'm so interesting. Thanks for joining us. Nick.
Yeah, I was asking you guys before we were talking about just sort of, it seemed to be you were talking generally about the pause of the world versus the Christian, and in that sense we're kind of assuming that all Christians are, or at least we're not challenging that Christians may or may not be paused. So I'm just, for me, the biggest challenge often, actually, for the first time in my life, really unconcerned about stating my faith in public. I mean, I don't like I don't state the Nicene Creed in public, but I mean, just that I'm a Christian doesn't not. Whereas when I was younger, I tended
there's no real persecution of Christians per se. If you're a trad Christian, if you're actually trying to uphold the faith, then then you're definitely going to be persona non grata. So yeah, I was teaching CCD a while back. It's been a few years, but I remember saying it was the last class. It was my parting remarks to these kids, some of whom were interested, most of whom were not. And I basically said anti-Catholicism is the only permitted, the only bigotry still fashionable. As they were, these are kids that are going off to, most of them probably going off to college soon, and in a couple of years. I basically tried to challenge them to live the true faith as best as they understood it, which may not have been terribly well. And but yeah, if you just being a Christian, just being nominally a Christian, it's pretty much I guess I wouldn't necessarily call it the state religion, but progressivism is, and there's a whole lot of expressions of Christianity, including many Catholic churches, where that really isn't a problem. They can go along right with it. Our own Pope is undoubtedly progressive, and he's a hero to the world. I saw an article earlier today about the Lutherans were just thrilled with him. Boy, if you'd been a Pope, Martin Luther wouldn't have led the revolution. I think our Pope is probably a little bit too liberal even for Martin Luther, quite a bit more so.
Yeah, Martin Luther wasn't really a liberal.
No, not in the modern sense, that's for sure. Yeah. And he would have probably been happy with any of the last 3 or 4 Piuses, for that matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, righteous Pope is what he wanted. He didn't want a more paused Pope. I'm not defending Martin Luther in any way.
There was plenty of room for reform in the church at the time. And if the church had been reformed by his protest, then we'd hail him as a hero today. But unfortunately, he divided the church, and so we don't, or at least I don't.
Do you think we get the same issue? The same? Oh, sorry, Moose.
Well, my question on that is, how do we avoid making the same mistake? Like, at what point did his quest for a reasonable reform become,
I don't know
another brain.
Yeah, I don't know the exact history well enough. It's too bad we don't have Yuli on here. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Lu
Yeah,
Yi.
Lu Yi.
Lu
Yeah, I
Yi,
mean,
yeah.
he would probably.
I just
know.
call him the Chinese Anglican.
Yeah,
There's only one of them.
He's
So
very, very knowledgeable about all aspects of church history. It's fantastic to listen to him, really. But he'd probably be able to tell you better. But Martin Luther was disciplined by the church, and the local princesses protected him, so he started a revolution. And he had the backing of the secular leaders to do it, or otherwise he would have been toast. So I mean, I guess that was kind of the line.
yeah, but I mean, you feel like there's something earlier, like it's one of those.
Radicalized a lot, by the way. I mean, if you look at the original 95 Theses, there's very little in there. I shouldn't say nothing. Certainly not nothing, but there's very little in there that isn't true and right.
I mean, the original 95 Theses,
mostly about indulgences.
They assume things that the Orthodox wouldn't even support about the existence of purgatory. So, I mean, it was clearly a Roman Catholic document at that point. But I mean, then I don't know if it was pride or. Yeah,
I don't know either. I hesitate to speculate. I mean, there's certainly good Lutherans out there. I know a few, but. I don't want to fight that fight. I mean, that's not. Yeah, things are bad all around. So.
No, I'm just interested in it for the purposes of those of us who are trying to, the phrase I always use is fight for order and virtue. You don't want to remake historic mistakes.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't know, the movement of people that are interested in order and virtue loves to put a name on itself and then have slap fights with somebody else, put a different name on it, which is part of why I've always, stayed away from joining any of the groups or whatever. But I mean, I remember the falling out between the manosphere and the alt-right before the alt-right existed, and then
Oh yeah,
there was like 6 or 7 of these in the life of my blog of little obscure internet groups that are all basically similar and cross-pollinated that all of a sudden had these huge spats with each other over nothing.
Yeah. Well, there's a bunch of things going into play there. I mean, first of all, narcissism of small differences, which affects every group. Secondly, you are in I don't like the term extremist, but we are a tiny minority viewpoint within the alt-right, and so that tends to attract it's kind of like village atheists. It's like it tends who are the kinds of people who are not going to go with the flow? Well, there are well-adjusted people who are legitimately convinced that the flow is wrong. And then there's just people who are natural born not go with flowers. Okay, and that's a significant fraction of the population of any fringe movement whatsoever. And these are people that would, they're just not well socialized. They're not sociable. They're antisocial people. And in fringe movements, they can find a home. Unfortunately, you don't really want them. So it's they're a little bit like the village atheists. They would be the ones that would be contradictory no matter what the particular orthodoxy is. They're going to be against the current orthodoxy. So they're not the type of people you build movements on, build institutions on. They're just dispositionally sour and contrary. And so I think that that's always been a bane. For every good one of us out there, there's probably 3 or 4 people that are just plumb antisocial. I mean, you see that even in the leaders. I mean, I was personally acquainted with Larry Oster, and Larry Oster may he rest in peace. Great guy, seminal influence on the alt-right, I would say. I think that's fair to say. He had some very, very nasty blowouts with folks, that were his friends, that were helping him,
Yeah, didn't he have one with Jared Taylor?
Oh, I don't even know about that. Yeah, I think
for the first year of American Renaissance, Oster was involved with it, or I think he spoke at the first conference, but then like a year later, he like disassociated himself with them.
Oh wow.
He was dispositionally. He was just the type of person that had a disposition that, wasn't real, and and he lived a life accordingly. I mean, he was basically a Bohemian Jew who got interested in conservatism and never married, became an Anglican, just all these crazy things that, ordinary people just don't do. And so he was kind of wired up, to be some of that from the beginning. I mean, we're blessed to have had him and his writings, which are got to be zillions of words there. But he was hard to get along with, really hard to get along with. And a lot of alt-right people are hard to get along with. And so, it doesn't mean you can't work with them, but you may not be working that closely. If you're trying to build an organization, then, you kind of have to filter for that a little bit. Yeah.
Hey, Nick.
I consider myself a jolly contrarian.
Yes.
I was born to be contrary, but I have reasonable social skills, though.
Yeah.
Not always as good as I wish they were.
I have a question for Nick real quick about near reaction stuff.
Okay.
The tweets that you were posting earlier today about not all of the anti-gay stuff and other stuff has come from the Christians within near reaction. That stuff.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, yeah. I thought I thought that people might be wondering about it, and indeed, several people have asked me about that.
I guess my question's slightly tangential. I don't know how long you've been with the neo-reactionary, because I don't remember when I found you, but I first became aware of the neo-reactionaries in like 2013. There was a big slap fight with the Manosphere over what I perceived to be nothing at the time, and
I don't remember that actually, but I don't actually remember what that was about. But
at the time, there were people that identified as Christian neo-reactionaries, but the overall idea that I got was not of a mainly or mostly Christian movement at all. Whereas my perception has changed to today, where I would say that I do see it more that way, and you would be in a better position than me to know that. Is that just a false perception on my part, or has neo-reaction become more Christian?
It has. It has. But I don't know how to say that. I mean, certainly there are atheists within the neo-reaction that have become Christian, or that have started attending church in spite of the fact that they're not Christian, or they don't have belief. But I mean, that's not just it. I think there's always been, well, I shouldn't say always. I think Jim Donald, who is quite famously an atheist, well, I'm not 100% sure anymore, but he famously has kind of written the book on, we need a state religion for the same reason we need a king. You need a king so you can kill all the other kings that claim to be king. You need a state religion to kill all the other state religions that'll try to crop up when you don't have one. And I mean, so our thesis is that progressivism essentially is the state church that you get when you don't have an official state church with constitutionally, and I use the term small c, that don't have limits based on custom and order and law. In other words, if you had a state church, the bishops of that church would have like this much power, and that's it. So them.
Yeah, I
them
agree with
trying,
you on that.
So basically, that's sort of an idea that has evolved within NRX with the help of Jim and many others, including myself, probably. That you kind of need this thing, and I don't think in 2013 that was a consensus within the move. I wouldn't call it a movement within the school. Whereas I think by 2015 you do have that as a consensus in the school, and by 2015 you have many atheists, people from Less Wrong that came out of Less Wrong, techno-commercial sort of side of things, basically agreeing with that, even though they don't personally have faith. They realize that it's important, first of all, for a nation to have an official religion, and for good people everywhere to give at least some sort of lip service to it. In other words, not oppose it. It's like there were probably atheists back in in England back in the 1600s who may not have had any deep personal faith, but they didn't go around disagreeing with the religion because that was destabilizing to the country, to the people. So, and then of course, as NRX has grown, and it has grown slowly, but it does tend to attract. At least half the folks coming in are probably Christian of some sort. I mean, mostly Orthodox and Catholic, but we have a few Protestants as well. Oddly enough, we managed to stay around, even though we're constantly, kind of beating up on them, usually in good fun. But like this fella Titus Cincinnatus, who runs the blog. Trying to think of the name of it. Neo-Ciceronian Times. It's a very good blog. He's a fantastic writer. I mean, he's Baptist. And he puts up with us and we put up with him, and not a big deal. So I don't know if that answers the question. I mean, it's not explicitly Christian. It's not explicitly Catholic. I've seen some white papers that suggest that, the sort of our current working view is that, you'd need a state church of some sort for the American empire. And we don't know exactly what that would be, but the default mode right now is it's probably Catholicism. Just because it's, the biggest contender, really. You can't really have a state church of Baptists because there's no bishop, right? I mean, there's no, who's the bishop of Baptists? Who's the Pope of Baptists? It's not the Baptist churches are plural in a deep sense. So they can't, there's no hierarchy that says I am the Pope of the Baptists, so I can interface to the government, as an official state church. It just doesn't make any sense. So,
yeah, that does answer my questions.
Okay.
That's too long and too in detail of a question to ask on Twitter. So I'm glad that we ended up on this, so I could ask you.
Okay, great.
Well, and one thing I'd like to point out about, even this is before you get to a state religion, is, and we talk about this from time to time on this Hangout, is so much of what you see with, the acrimony and the pettiness in the alt-right and reactionary thought. In my opinion, it's just another glaring example of how people need to be ruled. When this hierarchy is demolished, and you can have anyone, just they feel it's their birthright, to just start mindlessly shit posting, and it's that's what I think of every time is there's just no hierarchy, and that's it's just such a wound in the Western collective psyche.
Yeah, we don't. That's right. It's basically power up for grabs, and when power is up for grabs, people will grab at it any way they can. It becomes its own morality, really. I mean, you listen to the leftists talk. I mean, you listen to Antifa talk. They're just, it's like they don't have, their only morality is what's good for us. The free, you name it. You name any principle that a liberal might stand on, and it's completely out the window with them. It's like there's no free speech for Nazis. There's no equal protection of laws for Nazis. There's and by the way, we get to define who a Nazi is too. Yeah, but there's no principles there, and that's how power works. Which is why you don't just go giving it out to people. It's basically like keep your head down, do your job, have your faith, raise a family. That's what normal people have been doing for 10,000 years.
Know your place.
Yeah, exactly. Know your place and leave the power to the experts, or the people who really have skin in the game. Whether it's money, or if you're a billionaire or a hyper billionaire, chances are you're going to be somewhere near the seat of power because, well, chances are you cooperated with them to get there in the first place. But anyway, it's not natural for people to be that way. It's people are tribal, and the whole idea of civilization is in my opinion at least, is that it really is a single tribe that sort of conquers all the other tribes and brings them together and gets them to work together and sort of press down on the tribalism a bit, permit a little bit of tribalism, whether that's religion or clannishness or what, separatism of some sort, but essentially suppress it enough so that larger collectives of people can work together and have essentially free trade and that sort of stuff, and that essentially that improves the strength of the entire civilization. So you can kind of create this rising river that lifts all the
sort of like Edmund Burke's views on India and Ireland. Let them have their beliefs and
right, yeah.
I think we have to see two tragedies that our modernity, sees as developments. And even those who hate the church think the Reformation was important because of its historical implications and how it led to the possibility of further reform from their perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Degradation from our perspective. So you have two things. Not just the French Revolution, but that's certainly the culmination. So you have the tragedy is that you have the legitimate power failing to exercise its power probably either legitimately or certainly effectively. So they fail those they're serving, and those who are serving rebel against them and then destroy the social order. And you have this happening first religiously. You probably couldn't have the French Revolution without the religious reform taking place prior to it, and weakening the sense of authority in general,
right?
Authority, church. So, these things are profound tragedies. I think. I'm sorry to Protestants. I was raised a radical Protestant, but I guess I'm a Protestant because I'm an Anglican, but I'm an Anglo-Catholic tending towards. I'd like to see the church join back with Rome. So,
yeah.
But so yeah, we have to.
You protested yourself almost all the way back now.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I had rock bottom with the Christadelphians and then bounced back up.
Not protested too much.
My son was baptized 2 weeks ago in the ocean. We dipped him in 3 times. He's 25. And he.
Oh wow! This the guy in the rock band?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Wow.
It was. I got to help because my priest's back was out, so I got to help.
So you see, wait. You're, this Anglican use, or
this is not standard Anglican form at all. No, he wanted to be immersed. He didn't want to be sprinkled, so it is done both ways.
Ocean. Wow.
The Orthodox always do immersions. Yeah. So we had to wade out in this shallow water. It was quite an event. Most people there had never witnessed one because Anglicans see that as kind of a Southern Baptist kind of thing. but tent revival kind of thing.
Yeah. Wrong socioeconomic caste.
Yeah, yeah.
Really,
Exactly.
for most of them, I think most of the interdenominational strife in America, and I think I believe it is the signal story of America. Is really just a proxy class war. I think it always has been. I mean, there's the whole bitter clinger, whatever, they hold to their religion, bitterly hold to their guns and religion and stuff. That whole thing. That's not. Obama wasn't even thinking when he said that. That was in his tap water. I mean, that he grew up with that in his tap water. He's on his mother's side of the family. Of course, his father was high caste as well, but high caste enough to come to America and get a PhD. But yeah, and of course he was raised by his grandparents, who I assume they must be, like really, really waspy, northeastern kinds of folks, Anyway, yeah, that was nothing new, and in fact, even there's even reactionaries who had a very, very low view of Southerners. I'm thinking of Mencken, who just had some dreadful things to say about white working class and Southerners and stuff like that. Do
you think Mencken was a reactionary?
I think, well, maybe not in his day. Maybe he was just curmudgeonly. Yeah. He certainly said a lot of things. Well, there is
There's some overlap.
There's a lot of overlap there. Yes, that's true. I don't actually know much about his political views. I mean, he tended to just be really hyper skeptical. Like, oh, women want the vote. Oh, I should make us some sandwiches or something. I can just, he's just, I don't know how much of that's curmudgeonliness and how much of that's actual, real philosophy. I don't know. I don't know much about him, but I know he's kind of a hero now because he's so quotable. He's got all these, things he said that are really brilliant. But
I don't know a lot about Mencken, but from what I do know, I've heard people say he was kind of like a proto-libertarian.
That could be.
I always assumed he was just contrarian.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of ways, I think he was. I remember there's the H.L. Mencken Society, which had a lot of people like Jared Taylor. I think Paul Gottfried. They're like all involved with that.
Oh yeah. Jim Kalb is in it. Yeah, whom I see regularly. It's they. I'm not gonna say. I can't say. No, it's like no. Yeah, they're a good group. They're definitely a good group, and I think that some of them are kind of keenly aware that Mencken didn't necessarily represent reactionary viewpoints that accurately or that well, but that's its name. It's worthy of honor, so it's not a problem. It's just like a Confederate statue,
Mm-hmm. It's funny that Lawrence Oster was brought up, because I was actually thinking about him earlier, and I was thinking how much Vox Day kind of reminds me of him. I mean,
wow, yeah, I don't know. I have not been following this whole brouhaha very closely, so
it's eminently unfollowable.
It's I mean, I know he's certainly
eminently ignorable.
He certainly harms people that I like and that are my not merely that I like, but the people that are personal friends of mine. So I mean, I'm definitely gonna take sides in that just for the natural reasons, but
I've had such a hard time comprehending it because I've read Vox for a while, and he usually is a fairly clear thinker, and the fact that he got baited so easily into doing exactly what England wanted him to do and still doesn't see it just completely flabbergasts me. Like how in the world can you be such a pawn and not realize it? Like, And yes,
What's this?
I mean I get some laughs out of what Pax is posting about it, but most of my head about it has been reading what Vox himself posts about it.
Hmm. So I didn't realize that. I knew there had been some sort of debate between Anglin and Vox. I think I may have caught like 14 seconds of it or something. So wait. So you think that Anglin managed to bait Vox into doing what? Into suing Gab? What?
Yeah, it's like a world-class troll. He trolled Vox into trying to destroy the company that he was promoting like crazy. It's so incredible of a troll, because Vox got mad at Anglin because of basically Anglin saying stuff like he always does about everybody.
Yeah.
Debate me. So they go to the debate, and Anglin's like, I'm not actually going to give any arguments because Vox Day has already proved that he's in bad faith because he said this mean thing about me once and this. And it just like, it was laughable, right? And Vox Day's like, Nazism is a left-wing thing because of this and this and this. And he's like trying to argue the thing, trying to actually argue the debate. And Anglin didn't even make a point, anything about debating. He's just making fun of Vox. And so then a bunch of the stormers or whatever make posts on Gab calling Vox a pedo or something like that. And so Vox goes, oh my, this is defamation. And I order Gab to take this down. And Torba, of course, is like, we're trying to be like a free speech thing, so we're not going to just like, disappear hundreds and hundreds of posts just because they're saying mean things about you. And he's like, fine, well, then I'm going to sue you. And
goodness. Okay.
I've never had any opinion about Anglin, the Daily Storm, or whatever. I don't read it, whatever. But the tiny little exposure that I have is that the guy's some kind of an internet performance arts artist that likes to make a big stink. And here, he's must have had one of the greatest performances of all time, because he literally took the biggest cheerleader for Gab and made him sink the company, or at least do his best to.
Or at least try to, yeah.
By calling up a couple names online. I mean, what a troll! I mean,
it has been bizarre. I never paid attention to Vox until this. I mean, I knew about him, and he seemed pretty bright to me, but like, everyone's talking about this, and I checked it out a little bit. And I was like, wow, this is really just, I don't know what to think of it.
And I mean, Pax Dickinson is like an epic troll. I mean, the Duck was awesome. And this just is gone so far beyond it. He's literally, I can't see how a guy as smart as Vox can't see how he's being played is this giant joke, but he just doesn't get the joke.
Autism. That's what I would chalk it up to.
And perhaps some narcissism.
Yeah, I think that must.
He's always kind of had a vibe like that. I mean, he says a lot of smart things. He does a lot of good things, but yeah, that there's always been kind of a vibe of narcissism there. So I don't know. I don't want to judge him. Obviously he's. I don't think it's this kind of silly infighting is.
Better watch what you say. He might sue Google.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. Good luck with that. I don't think that's gonna happen. But
this stuff is bound to happen.
He used to be the guy that's always saying, "Hey, infighting is bad, guys. Don't shoot at your own extremists. Let them be your stormtroopers for you." Even if he was the guy that was saying, "Hey, if they're not all the way to what we believe yet, they're still bringing people." He was always this unity.
Mm-hmm. He must have known. I mean, that
all of a sudden it's just a complete about face. I don't know.
I mean, he must have known about Anglin. I mean, that guy is like a notorious troll.
My respect has gone up a lot for him now to hear that story. Actually, that's a pretty pretty good trick. So he has power. There's probably a lot of folks like that. You don't really want them in your club, but they can help you a lot.
Absolutely.
You know,
The only thing Anglin ever did that I found funny was when he was trolling he got banned from Twitter for trolling on the Mizzou hashtag when that whole thing was going on 2 years ago. He basically, there was that stupid thing about supposedly somebody made a poop swastika and then there were people protesting on campus, and I can't even remember how the events unfolded, but then like somehow there was suspicion that like, I don't even remember the situation because we had so many of these campus incidents now. Like, I'm probably getting them all mixed up, but he started tweeting out like breaking news: the KKK is spotted on the Mizzou campus, and people are like believing it and thinking it's real. And it's like, you know, the KKK just started lynching random black people, and tweets like, "Oh my gosh, this is so scary!" And like, you really believe this is happening? Like,
He's never struck me as right wing, left wing, anything. I've always seen everything he's done in his entire site as a complete joke. And the fact that Vox Day gets so serious about it, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I never really been a fan of England just because whenever I read I never really read the Daily Stormer. I guess it's down now, but like whenever I'd read it, it seems like about 75% of the time I would be like, okay, this is retarded. Does he actually think this is a good political strategy here to blame literally everything on the Jews? And I remember in that debate, Vox read a quote from England where he said something like we have to make it so that every bad thing ever is blamed on the Jews, and England didn't back down from that statement. He's like, it's always a Jew behind it. And it's like, okay, I don't know if this is like real or you're just trolling here, but like if this is supposed to be real, then you're kind of a simple-minded moron.
Yeah, I never took any of it as real. I read a couple of the articles on his site, and I always thought that they were just satire of Gawker. You know, like, let's change who the bad parties are and like write the same thing as a satire of it. Like,
yeah,
I've literally everything that I've seen from him, I thought was a joke. See Vox get so serious about it, I don't get it. I would just laugh.
Yeah.
If he was saying names about me or wanted to debate me or whatever, I would just like laugh. I would think it was hilarious. I'd be like, yeah, let's have a debate about whether cherries are actually apples or not.
Is that an actual debate?
No, I just made up some bullshit off the top of my head because that's what I feel like England went into the debate with Vox as.
Those are
like,
fighting words.
Is a tomato a fruit or a vegetable?
Yeah.
You'll hear from my lawyers. I've had enough of this.
Yeah, I don't know.
So
I feel like
well, just briefly, I was going to say to Nick that our and William, I think William actually brought it up, but the thrust of what we were talking about when we started was, you know, how as Christians, you know, we can be there, you know, be prepared for, you know, guys who and potentially young ladies, but probably more likely men, you know, who grow weary of the Andrew England, Box Day wars, and, you know, could perhaps use a witness. You know, people on, you know, on the alt-right, and it's because there is a need, you know, there's, you know, you know, it's not like I think we're ready to engage in like some sort of organized outreach, but, you know, anyway,
yeah,
that's how we started.
Yeah, well, people tend to get very black-pilled. Was, you know, phenomenon I noticed it. I mean, I guess I probably should have noticed it forever, but I started noticing it a few years ago, and I kind of made it a little bit of my mission to try to cheer people up as best I could and get them to focus on the things that they could fix and the things that they could change. And you know, so it's kind of, you know, that's something, that mission of encouragement and direction is very close to my heart. It's like, you you can't fix gay marriage, you can't fix Obamacare, you can't fix any of the, any of the big issues that society at large is, for whatever reason, through the whatever media access you have, you're focused on these things, but it's you need to develop agency to change anything, and the place that starts is with yourself. Make yourself a better, stronger person. And it was actually funny. I don't know how much Nick Fuentes reads us or listens to us or anything. I mean, he claims to, but he was just on his podcast yesterday. I think it was yesterday night. He's probably live right now, in fact, but competing with us, no less. But he said, like, almost something I would say verbatim. Like he said something like, you need to lift, you need to go to church, you need to, better yourself, you need to find a wife, get married, have lots of kids, because that's where it's at. This, something like that. So basically my whole spiel that I keep saying, people say, what should I do? What should I do? Do this. Other than that, I don't have any advice for you. It's like, people want to get in the movement. People want to do something radical. Well, it isn't going to do us much good right now. We're just, it's a long haul. We've got to build something. We got to build something first to join. In the meantime, become a more virtuous person yourself. It will be its own reward. And the time may come when, we will have, a much larger organization to join, and you can do more. But first, prove yourself worthy, and if you want to lead, lead yourself, lead your family, lead your local community.
Yeah, we already have the template.
Yeah. So I agree. I mean, this is nothing new. It's not like something, that NRX invented or anything. It's just sort of discovering again for the, 100th time. I mean, I think it's there in the Analects. I think it's there in Confucius, and it's there in ancient wisdom and in the Greek philosophers as well. I mean, but this is nothing new. We know the right things to do, and yet we're tempted by our unique circumstances and our unique technical capabilities to worry about things that we can't fix. Okay. Oh, this, they're trying to, okay, transgender surgery for 6-year-olds. Well, thank God it's not your 6-year-old. That's all you can do. I mean, yes, it's disgusting, and yes, if we had a righteous king, they'd drop that doctor out of a helicopter or something. But in the meantime, we don't. And taking the law into your own hands is just a way to paint a target on your back and destroy what little credibility the right wing might have. A very wise friend visited a couple weeks ago to New York, and we met up with him, and he said, and he was speaking specifically about Charlottesville, but he basically said, don't poke a dragon unless you know how to defeat it. And I think he's right.
Good advice.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we go around. We hate this dragon. We want this dragon to die. Absolutely, we absolutely agree. Everything it's doing is terrible. We agree. All the rage porn. We agree. But going around poking it, trying to stir up some mass movement against it, which is not likely to really become a mass movement anyway. It's just you're just giving yourself, you're just increasing the attack surface for the dragon to find you and shut you down. And that's exactly what happened in the wake of Charlottesville. So many people, the whole websites getting shut down, accounts being suspended, et cetera, et cetera. We're kind of playing into their propaganda. So I think go ahead.
Sorry, Nick. I thought you were not correct.
No. I mean, it's fine. Anyway, the long and short of it is there's two angles to work. The angle to work privately, out of the gaze of Sauron, build your institutions, build your networks, do all that stuff that's not illegal to do. And then on the other side, the trolling, the 4chan, this whole meme warfare is totally fine. but it's trying to pull those things together and trying to make it about, an actual political movement that's going to attack the powers that be. Yeah, it's not gonna. You're just asking for trouble,
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they haven't, foreseen this, this sort of thing, possibly coming about.
Right. Yeah. So they're not in power because they're stupid. They seem stupid, and in the aggregate, there's a lot of stupidity in the major players that are playing, but as a whole, as a collective, semi-coordinated system, it still has an enormous amount of power, and they keep that power by being intelligent. And this is academia, this is the media, this is the permanent government, etc. NGOs. It's all kind of. It's not tightly coordinated. It's not. But it's coordinated enough to, for there to be a sense of it. I mean, if there's an NGO, you have a pretty good idea of the sorts of people that are going to work there, and you have a pretty good idea of what they're going to be advocating, somewhere in the world. It may be ostensibly building wells, but it's going to be on the side. It's going to be about social justice and everything else that goes with it. I'm done. I'm sorry. I interrupt.
No, I interrupt.
I stole teleologic's idea, or I hope you didn't forget it.
Maybe. Give me a minute. Yeah, no, it has fled my cells for now. At least the 4 cells, the conscious cells.
I was going to look this up on YouTube to see if we have any viewers.
Says we have 10 viewers according to the little thing in the corner here.
That probably includes us, though, right? I mean,
well, I don't have the YouTube page open though, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe I don't right now either.
I just have the text chat open as well, because you can open that in a separate window.
Oh, there it is. But this is the text chat. You mean for the group or for the viewers?
The public one for the viewers.
Oh, you can open that separately?
Yeah, you can click on the thing that says, I think it says pop out chat, and then just copy the URL and put that in a window. That's what I do.
Oh. Text savvy in.
I definitely got to mute it. Oh, I see live chat. There it is. There it is.
I've never even checked the chat. I just checked the one that's on the actual app that we're talking on.
Yeah, I don't know. Some people engage it more. I remember what I was going to say, if that's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think people. I think a lot of people on the alt-right, like people who are sort of just alt-right and not sort of Christians, reactionaries who also sort of, have some sympathy with this idea of the alt-right. Maybe even some kind of whatever belonging in some way. I don't think they realize, some of them, how late in the day. I mean, take somebody like Baked Alaska. He's a nice guy. I don't have anything against him whatsoever from anything that I've seen him do. I mean, he's a bit maybe impetuous, but they sort of still think that America is America and that they will, their rights will be defended somehow. Like, they don't understand. Yeah. I mean, even England's been kind of whining like a baby about, it's no different than what I said before. And it's like, well, freedom of speech and in any society, any decent society, even as a monarchy that offers a certain amount of freedom of speech to people to speak their minds, there's always a limit to it. I mean, it's never unlimited. Once you pass it doesn't, Lenny Bruce maybe made us think that freedom of speech was, pornographic speech, but that was never the idea.
I mean, he had. I mean, yes, that was never the idea originally, but the reason he got away with
that's what it became.
And then is that he had powerful sponsors who wanted it to be that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be laws. There's always going to be laws against blasphemy. The only question is, what is the content of blasphemy? You can put the crucifix of Christ in a jar of urine. That's not blasphemy, but if you say the sort of things Andrew Anglin does, it is. That is blasphemy. That's the definition of blasphemy. And so he's persecuted for it.
Yeah, it riles people at that. It triggers people at that fundamental. Yeah. Moral triggers that they have been conditioned.
Well, there's also, absent a good, decent hierarchy to rein this in. There's the panicked, sense of urgency. Once you are able to kind of glimpse, just how far gone things are, and so there's that that impulsive desire to like act and kind of it's an overcompensation, and there's in my view like the way to even for anyone to, I think anyone can understand this. One way to kind of counteract that is to just sort of look at everything in reverse. And, I mean, we it's not like we're going to, get back to, the halcyon days of Christendom and exactly as they were. But you can look at, this concatenation of all these things that, that have led up to this point and go backwards. And say, okay, let's look towards, an attainable goal. How let's see if we can get to where things weren't quite as bad. You guys know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you can. The question is what are the forces that are driving it in one direction, fixing that? And it's like any point in time in the past. I mean, 2009 was a heck of a lot more sane than today. What the question is what is this occult force that's driving things insane this way? It can, and getting under that, I think it's not just a question of policy. It's a question of power and really I think at least part of the biggest problem of it is that power is so divided that it just essentially becomes constant competition everywhere. I mean, one of the things that I think about is one of the things that makes, okay, let's stipulate we have blasphemy laws. Okay, the problem is not the blasphemy laws. The problem isn't even quite so much the content of the blasphemy laws. The problem is the way the blasphemy laws get enforced, which is to say, informally. They, 99% of people convicted of blasphemy in the United States today are being convicted in sort of this ad hoc, capricious way. It's somebody at work is offended, somebody wherever, is offended by this.
It's very effective.
And it's like it doesn't really. Well, I mean, I guess it kind of works. I mean, you can kind of liken it to maybe a secret police kind of state almost. It's almost like in order to participate in power, you have millions and millions of people volunteering essentially to work for free to sort of rat on their fellows. You can kind of look at it that way. It's sort of like we have a system, a government that is patently unstable in at least a certain way of looking at it, and so in fear for its own security, has to sort of set up this ad hoc network of informants, basically, and they don't get paid much. They basically have the state quote unquote church, which is progressivism, which is the literati, the priestly caste of our society, which is the media and the educators of the world, basically giving people brownie points. This is a good person. This is a good person who turned in their friends, or this is a good person who was offended You get brownie points for being offended. You know, most of the people who are offended are being offended on behalf of other people who, in fact, might not even be offended. I'm trying to think of the one guy that got fired for saying a very, very mildly racist remark to a black guy who was not at all offended by it. It was somebody who overheard the conversation, turns him in. He gets
it was a white person.
Yeah, a white
woman.
Yeah, a white woman who gets offended on behalf of the other guy who was not at all offended. You know, who was a grown man who could take care of himself and maybe even argue his own case. But no, you know, somebody else has to be offended on his behalf. You know, that, you know, I imagine that sort of thing happens all the time. You just don't, you know, you don't hear about it because it's like, you know, 1,000 times a day.
And that's somehow not matronizing to this man. You know?
Yeah, well, yeah. It's
well, that's not racist, you know. Well, you know, the black man will speak up for himself. So
it's the soft bigotry of thinking this full-grown professional, intelligent, well-socialized black man can't argue on his own behalf, so I got to go be offended for him. Yeah, it's obviously racist. You know, it's really true. The whole Dems or the Progs. I mean, you know, it's like, you know, people say Dems are the real racists, and it's kind of a joke because, you know, we got conservatives saying that all the time, but it really is true. You know, it's really the people. You know, it's actually the racists who aren't really racist. They sort of, sort of think like, well, blacks can fend for themselves. They should, you know. It's like, and I think that's one of the reasons you see the alt-right and the hoteps actually pretty much walking in lockstep. You know, you got this minority of black men especially who kind of see reality as it is, and they go, we better buck up and take care of our own problems here, you know. And the alt-right, the quote-unquote racists, are going like, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, you really should do that. Because, you know, you guys are worse off now than you were under Jim Crow. By many, many objective measures. Blacks are worse off today than they were 50 years ago. So, anyway, I like blacks. I want them to succeed. So, you know, whatever works.
Well, I just have to. I'm going to sign off, and I just wanted to say the B, of course, stands for bedtime, and I've been up since 5 or so. So, God bless all of you, and thanks to everyone who listened, and it was an honor and a privilege partaking. Take care.
Good to talk to you. Lumen. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Lumen.
Good night, Lumen.
And don't forget to follow on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'll put that in the description.
Adios. Bye, guys.
Well, that gives me a pretty good out because I need to take care of some stuff around here too. So.
Lumen
Glad you could be here, Moose.
Well, he doesn't follow me.
Lumen _Sol.
Okay. All right, Lumen. I followed you, bud. You better follow me back.
Is your account still protected, Nick Beasties?
No. It was only protected briefly a while back. Yeah, I've kept it free. In fact, even my DMs are open. I'm actually shocked I don't get a lot more DMs like from angry people like, trying to. You know, it's nice. I mean, it does happen every once in a while, but it's not really like a big problem. You know, people some people do contact me in DMs that they don't need to. That's a little annoying. It's sort of like it's like, hey, you can just ask me in public. It's okay. You know, other people might be interested. You know.
I think Moose has to get going here.
All right, Moose. Good talking to you, man.
Have a good night.
Yep. You guys all have a good one.
It's good to talk to you.
Yep. Hopefully,
night,
I'll be able to get in on the next one. All right.
Yeah,
bye.
whenever that'll be. It will be a month till the next one, like this one was.
I'm gonna be a bad citizen. I only wanted to jump on for about an hour, so I'm getting a bit of social pressure here to wrap up. So
That's
I guess
cool. I mean, I was thinking that this has been going for about 3 hours now, so maybe that'd be a good spot to wrap up. I know Gray Rebel said he wanted to join, but I haven't seen him, so I guess maybe he's not joining after all.
I'll have to show up next time. Yeah, I have a permanent commitment on Thursdays. Well, most pretty permanent commitment on Thursday, so it's a little tough for me to join, but I can maybe sometimes slip on for the last hour or so, of course, and completely disrupt whatever you guys were talking about.
No,
You
when you showed up,
you
because we
breathe
kinda
fresh
needed
life
some new-
into it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, we
good,
kind of
good.
slowing down, and then you came and picked right up.
Oh, good.
I know that happens a lot when somebody new joins.
Oh, Lumen did follow me back, by the way. Good man. Thank you. You might be listening. I don't know.
Yeah, Lumen, he gets up early, so he has to get to bed earlier than some of us do.
All right. Yeah. Well, I got to get up fairly early tomorrow. Huge day. Heading for a vacation, brief 4-day vacation this weekend with the fam, and then we get our nose back to the grindstone, I guess.
I guess today's the last day of summer, isn't it?
It's last day of summer, yeah.
Oh, is it? Oh, darn, yeah.
It is.
Well, the weather's been fantastic around here.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, I just noticed on the calendar today that tomorrow's the first day of autumn, and I was like, whoa.
It is the vernal equinox tomorrow.
Yep.
1:02 Pacific Standard Time, so 4:02 you guys this time.
Wow, the exact moment. Wow.
The moment of equinox, yes.
Sheesh. Cool. Got it down. I love autumn. It's my favorite season. The weather's usually great. There's no allergens in the air. Perfect. Spring would be good. Spring is equally good weather-wise, but it tends to have a lot of allergies for me, for whatever reason, and that's probably we need a whole hangout about allergies and what's it called, autoimmune disorders, because these things are going crazy. You know, obesity, autoimmune. Allergies, asthma. No, I don't either. But we can go. You know, we could come on for 3 hours and bullshit about it or something. It's like it's got to be something. It's got to be something. It is. It has to be something. We just don't know what. You know.
3 hours of anecdotes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, autoimmune horror stories.
Non-permissible evidence. We will. But yeah. Maybe we can get Alex Jones to come on.
Oh man, that would be wow. That would definitely increase the viewership. Oh man.
He claims to be a Christian.
I'm Jewish. We're all getting tired here, aren't we?
Ian, your impressions are actually pretty funny. I mean, they're not always. They're usually pretty good, but even when they're not good, they're still funny. So,
how many impressions have you heard me do?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to think now.
There's that 8-hour one. I did some of my repertoire on that one, like Steven Crowder, Hillary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton. Oh, I haven't listened to that yet.
I was kind of like, that's my Hillary Clinton. Why am I not up by 50 points, you might ask?
Jeez. 8 hours. Okay, guys, I am not listening to that one. I don't care what. 8 hours.
Jump ahead to the last hour or two.
Yeah, the last hour's where I'll get silly. So that's when Giovanni joined.
The rest of it's just a bunch of God talk, you know.
Yeah, actually, really, the first half of it. After the first 3 hours, I think it kind of turned into just frivolity.
Yeah, well, frivolity is okay, but that would be really tiring. I can't imagine doing that. But
we only did it because Bill Marchant was with us, and we wanted to.
Oh, right.
Become late night Bill.
Yeah. Oh, I see. So it was basically late night Bill live, like in person.
Exactly.
I don't know if I ever been on here when he's been on.
I think you might have.
I feel like I know him. No, not in real life.
You were on the same time as him once. Yeah,
probably was. Yeah.
You've posted his blog, Northern Reaction.
Oh yeah. Anytime he does something, I read a chapter in his book.
Oh, did you do a reading for it?
I did. Yeah, I did. I don't know. I don't know when it's coming out, but he asked me to do it.
Well, I remember he actually wanted Christopher Cantwell to do a chapter for him, but then he's in jail now, so it's kind of.
Chapter
he's got
from
lots of
courthouse
time.
jail. Yes, that's right.
Well,
Time on his hands, man.
Well, he actually before Charlottesville, Bill went on Radical Agenda to talk to him, and Cantwell did read out part of it on the air, but it wasn't the most perfect reading. But he said he might be able to edit it from that. Actually, how Bill Marchant's doing with that. Hope he's coming along all right with that.
I've given him my offering, which was one chapter. So.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. Yeah,
Yeah,
you got
me
good
too.
voice people. I mean, I don't really think my voice is that good, but Ian, you did one too?
Yeah, I did it.
Oh,
I did it
wow,
with my iPad, so it wouldn't be this low quality that you hear right now.
Oh, okay, nice.
It's more what my real voice sounds like.
All right, lads. Well, I'm gonna.
Yeah, I think we should just do a little wrap up here.
Okay.
So I'll just thank everybody. So it was a good chat, everybody. I really enjoyed it. Thank you to the 11 of you who are still listening to us instead of Nick Fuentes. You're all awesome. Thank you to Lumet Saul. Thank you, Tommy Jones. Thank you, Moose Norseman. Thank you, William Scott. Thanks, Nick B. Steves. And as always, we do it for you. So thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time, and have a good night.
Good night.